All right, well, Africa is making serious strides to break with the US dollar and the West in general. Many of those moves are happening this week. More than 20 African nations are expected to attend the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum that starts today in Russia. We're going to talk more about that in a minute. But first, watch Kenyan President William Samoei Ruto speaking to Parliament this week, announcing that Kenya will start trading in local currencies within Africa and not the US dollar, as they have been doing for decades. And watch the standing ovation that he receives from this announcement.
Traders from Djibouti selling to Kenya, or traders from Kenya selling to Djibouti, have to look for US dollars. How is US dollars part of the trade between Djibouti and Kenya? Why? And we are saying that today, Afri-Exim Bank have given us a mechanism where traders in our continent can trade in their goods and services, and the Africa-Exim Bank will settle payments in local currency. That is why Kenya champions the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System that is done by our own institution, the Afri-Exim Bank. Why, members? Why is it necessary for us to buy things from Djibouti and pay in dollars? Why? There is no reason. And we are not against the US dollar. We just want to trade much more freely. Let us pay in US dollars what we are buying from the US. But what we are buying from Djibouti, let's use local currency.
Wow. I mean, it seems like the simplest thing, right? Why do they have to buy US dollars in order to buy goods? In fact, Clayton and I, we were traveling recently in Egypt, and we were looking at the menu and we said, why does this Lebanese wine, which is close to Egypt, why is this so expensive? It's $50. And they said because of import trades. So Egypt cannot trade freely with Lebanon, which is just next door, or Jordan, or they have no trade agreements that the European Union enjoys, or the United States enjoys, or other blocs enjoy. Africa has been prevented from doing that. Well, now they are going forward with this system. What he mentions here is Pan-African Payment and Settlement System. It's called PAPSS. It runs through a central bank that has been started in Egypt. It's called Afri-Exim Bank. Doesn't roll off the tongue.
Yeah, it doesn't flow. They need to come up with a new name.
Now, it is based in Egypt and is shareholder owned. He says it is African owned, but it is also heavily invested in by China. Take a look. This was from 2012, I believe. No, 2019. Says they were receiving $850 million from Chinese financial institutions. Well, Africa has been enjoying Chinese investment for quite some time. The West will tell you, this is dangerous. Africa doesn't know what they're doing. They're saying like, oh, these Africans, they don't understand financial products, really.
Right. You got to be scared of the Chinese because they're going to take over everything. They will own you. They will destroy your country. Meanwhile, isn't that exactly what the West is doing?
Right. Well, and also the West benefits from Chinese investments. But we're telling Africans they don't understand what they're doing. I don't think there's anything more racist than that. Like, sorry, you guys don't understand finance. You don't understand that when you're accepting this debt from China, you're really doing your country wrong. But China has been investing in Africa infrastructure for decades. For example, in the Congo, major roads were shelled and destroyed in 1997 by the Rwanda-Uganda-backed army. China repaired those roads in 2010. Now, why would they do that? Here is how Siddharth Kara explained it in his book called Cobalt Red about cobalt mines. in Congo. He says that China's dominance in Africa was established in 2000 when President Jiang Zemin proposed the creation of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation to facilitate Chinese investments in African countries. This relationship was billed as a win-win. The Chinese would build much-needed roads, dams, airports, bridges, mobile networks, and power plants across Africa, and in exchange, China would secure access to vital resources to support its growing economy, and that has continued. These roads were built. We're going to hear from a politician who is going to tell us more about that just in a second. Now, Kara, the author of this book, he thinks that Chinese cooperation may not be the best thing for Africa, but not all African leaders feel that way. Just this week, Zambian politician, I'm sorry, it's going to sound terrible the way it comes out of my mouth, Akende Memembe Chundama. I believe that you can't, it's not like Western last names where you can just use one name. The name loses its meaning if you don't say it in its entirety, and it's butchered from me, and I apologize. But she spoke in Moscow this week about how the West has been exploiting Africa for centuries, and Africa is now demanding autonomy, and they feel like Russia and China are totally acceptable partners as a means to this end. Watch.
Africa is a hub for natural resources. It has always been for the West. And now Africa has multiple options. Africa doesn't have to succumb to a bad deal that we get from the Western countries. Africa has choice now. Africa now wants to be treated as equals at the table. And now Russia and China offer that to Africa.